Hello and welcome to the USA Cares podcast. I'm your host, Matt Castor. I am joined with my good friend, Anise McEwen. Hello, Anise.
I get good friend.
Well, I know. It's a stretch.
You might rethink that intro.
My co-host, how's that?
Better.
Anise McEwen. So it's good to be back with you. It's been a little while,
yes.
And we are here in a new studio. So
beautiful
studio. A beautiful studio. I like to think we're moving up in the world.
At least, yes. Yes, we are.
Just somewhat. But it's great to be back with you. This is an episode that you have been talking about for a long time, so I'm excited this day is here, and I know it's going to be some great stories. But before we get going, we need to talk about our good friends at Hardee's and Carl's Jr. because they've got something really big right around the corner, and I don't want to miss it, and that's the Stars for Heroes campaign. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
How can I not?
Yeah.
Stars for Heroes starting Memorial Day weekend all across the country. Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. You can purchase a star with your order at the register or in the drive-thru for at least $1. Those proceeds benefit USA Cares and go directly towards our programs and operations, and that helps us serve the veterans we care so much about.
It's unbelievable. There's like 3,000 restaurants that participate in this now, and it's created so many good opportunities for so many veteran families around the country. Don't miss this. And we talk about this a lot. If you're going to spend money on a product, spend it with a company that's making a difference. And Hardee's and Carl's Jr. is doing that. So definitely check them out today. This event is coming up very, very soon. There'll be all kinds of stuff on our website and through the social media that you're putting out, Anise. But you can learn more. Keep watching anything USA Cares, but you can learn more also at usacares.org. So that's a big deal. Also want to say thank you to McClellan Integrated Services and Roller Die Informing, two more companies that are really stepping up and helping us out. So very, very grateful to them. If you are new to the USA Cares podcast, welcome. This is a podcast all about honoring our veterans and giving back a little bit to those who have given so much. We'd like to share some stories, have some guests on who have have a little more knowledge than we do. Is that
a lot more in most cases? Yes.
We'll bring in the smarter people, and today is a good example of that. But I hope you'll check it out. I hope you hit that subscribe button and make this part of your weekly routine. But all right, Anise.
Yes.
You have read this book. You have prepared for this.
Front to back, baby.
You know, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but this is kind of your moment. So
yes.
Without further ado, would you please talk about our guest and talk about her great book?
Yes. So, as my usual research goes, I'm looking at veteran-written books. And I've spoken a couple times about my true crime passion. I love digging into things that, most of us, regular people don't experience or get knowledge of. So I came across this book called The Unit, which I'd never heard about. And we'll get more into it, but it's a very vague title.
Yep.
But it was great. I love the way it's written. I love the insight it gives you into some of those conflicts following 9/11 and the wars that the U.S. was involved in. And it gives also a great oversight of the bigger picture items that the U.S. is facing. So I'll give a brief summary, but she's going to do a much better job at explaining what's going on in this book. But the unit it's a unit in the military that we don't even know the name of. That's why it's called the unit. And it's a special operations force with some of the best of the best.
Yeah.
And the title is The Unit. It's written by our guest, Kelly Kennedy, but it's also written in partnership with the person it's written in first person about, which goes by the pseudonym Adam, but obviously he has a different name we'll never know.
Let's call him Adam.
Yeah, well, Adam is a good name. So welcome to the podcast, Miss Kelly, who is a veteran yourself. Am I right on that? You were. It says in the book you were in your bio that you were in Mogadishu. I can never say words.
That
when
was
we start
right.
Recording.
No, that was good.
Desert Storm. So you have a pretty, extensive background yourself, not just in writing, but in being a veteran that served as well.
Yeah, sort of randomly. I joined at a time when there was nothing happening and ended up in 2 war zones in 4 years. So
unbelievable.
What did you do? What were you doing over there?
What was your specialty?
What can you tell us that you did?
Yeah.
No, I have no special skills like Adam. We were setting up cellular or satellite subscriber phone systems so that the troops could talk on satellite phones during Desert Storms. It was the first time people used satellite phones in a war zone. So,
And what initially got you to join? Do you have a military family? What initially got you to join the Army?
yeah, my dad was in the Air Force. My grandfather served in World War II. Both grandfathers did. Um, but I just wanted college money, so I joined just like Adam did. I joined my junior year of high school. I'm sorry, no, Adam didn't do that. I joined my junior year of high school and went through basic training between my junior and senior year of high school, and then joined the regular military after I'd been in college for a bit. So.
Did you have a writing background? Because you said you were working on some cellular projects and some other things, but what prompted you to write a book?
Yeah, so I joined the Army because I knew I wanted to be a journalist and I needed to pay for that education.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you must have done a good job because, Anise, a lot of her research is done with Wikipedia searches. So the fact that you actually got her to read a book, Kelly, that's like the biggest endorsement right there. That's huge.
I want to know, how did you cross paths with Adam? Because obviously he can't go around with a badge that says I was in the unit and I know a bunch of top secret stuff.
Probably true.
How did you even cross paths and even get going on this project?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So my friend Kevin Maurer was originally called in to work as his co-author, and Kevin had too many other projects going on. So he's like, Kelly, you should do this. He's great, and this should be a really cool book. But originally, Adam was going to self-publish the book, and he was working with a self-publishing company to do that. And when we met, we liked each other well, I think, and I think our values sort of lined up, and we could see that in the first meeting. But they didn't necessarily line up with that of the publisher, who was looking for more of a guns and gear kind of book. And that's not what Adam wanted to write. And I was thinking, I don't think you should have to pay to publish your book. I think that this is a pretty good story. So we came out of that meeting. I just kept my mouth shut. I didn't say anything. I just waited to hear back. And about 3 months later, Adam called and was like, so I don't think I want to do it this way. I said, well, let me introduce you to an agent. And I introduced him to an agent who wasn't my agent just because I wanted to keep myself out. Like I was worried about a conflict of interest, I guess. Right. That journalism has been beaten into me. So he met up with an agent, and the next thing we knew, we had a proposal and a book deal with St. Martin's Press. And I think it worked out a lot better for him that way. So.
If you can, for people who, obviously I shared that it's a top secret special operations unit, but kind of introduce this book to people who haven't heard about it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's a top secret military intelligence unit. Basically, what they do is provide intel for your top tier units like SEAL Team 6 and in Delta. Usually one of these guys is along for the ride on those missions, just saying, go that way, or he's here and we've got eyes on. There's a Wikipedia entry for the unit, but we're not allowed to. The Pentagon reviewed the book and asked that we not confirm or deny the existence of this unit that's had many different names. So, so we didn't.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just, when you said that some of the books you'll see there's blacked out sentences or paragraphs from it. I'm interested why you chose in some of those sections to omit them, obviously, because I'm assuming you had to, but you kept those blocked sections. What was kind of your thinking behind that, and Adam's thinking, and keeping them to say that there was something here, but we just can't share it?
Yeah, well, first of all, we thought they looked kind of funny. Like they made us laugh because some of the things that we had to take out just seemed sort of innocuous, while the things that they allowed us to keep in seemed important. We were surprised by them. But I think it also adds some credentials to the book. Like the Pentagon went through, they reviewed this, they took this sentence out, but they cleared the rest of it. And we just wanted people to remember that the book is legit. It's a true story. There's been a bunch of reviews that are like, I don't think this is real. It is. So.
Adam's probably over there like, no, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, exactly.
His story is interesting. In addition to just being a part of this unit, is that he's an Egyptian immigrant, and he's an Arabic speaker. And as someone, and I don't mean to age anybody here, but as someone who was 7, 8 when 9/11 happened, I didn't really understand the precursors for that or for Al Qaeda or ISIS or how those developed. And he really gets into it and kind of explains not only the culture and the demographics and things like that, but he explains how that river flowed, for lack of a better term. I thought that was really interesting because we know obviously that there are Muslim and immigrant veterans, but we don't always hear their stories. Mm-hmm. So I like that I finally got to hear their side.
Yeah.
And his voice, which arguably is just as or more patriotic than some of our natural born, citizen veterans themselves.
Right. I think he has at the forefront at all moments why being in the United States is important to him and why he loves it so much.
And that's one of my, some of those stories I love those stories. I'll never forget being in an Uber in Texas and talking to the driver who was an interpreter in Afghanistan, and how he earned his way to the United States by serving the military for 7 years as an interpreter and earning his citizenship, and how proud he was to be in the U.S. and why he fought so hard and put himself in danger to come to this country. And I think some of those are some of the most powerful stories and remind us what a great place we live in if people are willing to risk their lives to get here.
Right. Kelly, what was some of the challenges, obviously, besides, deciding what you could and couldn't write in here, but what were some of the challenges you faced co-authoring this?
Yeah, I think marketing has been a big one because, as you said, a big part of the story is his immigration story. Mm-hmm. But he's also the first member of this unit to write a book. So you want to tell that story, but then he was so careful not to out any of his guys or tell any stories that were going to get anybody hurt. So it's so much more about his immigration story. It's not a guns and gear book necessarily, though those pieces are in it. We had difficulties meeting up. He's not always in the United States. But honestly, he tells his story so well. He's, these guys are incredible. They think in ways that are different from any moment in my entire life. They're incredible. Mm-hmm. So he already has it all mapped out in his head, what he wants to say. And he tells the story very linearly. I'm going to mess that up in a linear manner.
Yes, there you go.
And I mean, all I had to do was kind of sit down and tell it in order and map out the chapters and ask him questions. He's clear, he's concise. It was really just fun to hear his stories and like you, Anis, learn. Just not only was he telling the story of ISIS, he was telling the story of growing up in a place as those things were developing and how hard his father was working to make sure that he grew up outside of that trap in Egypt.
Kelly, what was, in your discussions with Adam, is there a story that kind of stood out to you? Not to give away anything in the book for those who want to order it, which they should do, but what story really sticks out with you that meant the most to you?
Gosh, there are so many. He talks about driving a yellow car a yellow hired car, which was a Pentagon edit, in Iraq.
Okay.
And how he would, first of all, that's crazy, right? Like that's scary. He's driving around Iraq in a car and checking into internet cafes and acting like he's local and just there to fix their stuff,
Yeah.
If he'd been caught, he would have been killed or as he talked about, probably beheaded on a video camera. It would have been horrible. So I think that story, but also the idea that when he left base, because he was a 5'1" brown man driving an Iraqi car, he made sure that someone at the base, everyone at the base knew that he was coming back in. He had like a placard. He made a phone call, like 6 levels of, hey,
Yeah.
it's me. Please don't shoot the guy driving toward the gate. So yeah, it
Unbelievable.
just sort of encompassed the whole, his experience. Like because he looked the way he did, because he had the background he did, he was able to get intel and also faced issues in the military. So
One, speaking of stories that are in the book, one
Hmm.
of them that not so much a story, but something he pointed out was in those interrogations or translations that he was a part of. What really lent him, the upper hand was that he knew the culture and what resonated with some of those, ISIS or terrorist organization affiliated, you know, people who had murdered other, in their country, and he knew I remember him saying, writing, that he would watch as his peers would kind of hound into him, don't you feel bad for killing? Don't you feel bad for killing? And at that point, I think the term he said was too far gone on the just the right and wrong of killing. But when he said, what would your mom think if she knew what you were doing or saw what you were doing, that resonated. And that was a cultural thing that only he, being born where he was in a, Muslim traditional way, that he saw that. And I thought that was so interesting. And part of the usefulness of people from those cultures that we don't always think about is that not only do they, know the risks and stuff, but they know kind of the back alley ways to get to people that we just don't as a Western culture.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Anise. I think that the other piece of that though is that he was empathetic.
Hmm.
So even though he hated what people had done, he was able to see this person as a person and dig in a way that's maybe different from someone who's not used to that culture or has been, one of the problems in the U.S. military, I think, and we did this in Somalia, we did this in Desert Storm, is as they're training us to shoot people, they're training us to think of them as other. So, you know, people in Somalia were skinnies. Black Hawk Down talks about that a lot. All of
Hmm.
the locals were called skinnies. There were names for people in Desert Storm. There were names for people in Iraq. Everyone was Haji.
Hmm.
And because Adam had grown up, this was his family. These are his people. He was able to get past that in a lot of ways and see the person.
The book does, and let me preface this by saying that Adam shares, from what I gather from the book, a very true and genuine appreciation for his service for the military and all that. But he does share some criticisms of the way the U.S. handled certain things, particularly in who they chose for certain things and who they excluded from the military at times. What were the difficulties for you with that? Being an Army veteran yourself, where you want to hold the military accountable, but you also don't want to make it seem like you're against them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's pretty apparent from Adam's writing that he just wants the military to be better. And one of the things that came across in our first meeting was that we had a lot of commonalities. I served as a woman during Desert Storm. It was one of the first wars that women were. I mean, the women have been serving in war for centuries, but
Hmm.
but this was the first time we were like on camera on CNN as women serving in combat. And there was a lot of debate then. Um, I went to college and had people protesting women being in the military at all. So that sense of other was certainly there for me too. And I faced some stuff when I was in the military, as a lot of military women have. Um, and then shared experience for where we served. So I think I mean, I understood what he was talking about when he talked about discrimination
Hmm.
and when he faced the I think it was a first sergeant or a sergeant major who was calling him names and making him work while he was fasting and extra hours while he was fasting, or the guy who called him a camel jockey. Um, I was so proud of him for how he went about it and how he addressed it and how he took care of it. He did it by the book, and he made sure that people understood why he did it. And he talked about why it was important to be open to people like him, which was a lesson he'd learned himself about people who weren't like him. So I don't think that was ever a struggle so much. He was just so proud of the people he served with, and wanted things to be better, and also saw things like the interpreters who were pushed out of the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which cost us lives in intelligence and in money. And I mean, who doesn't want to fix those kinds of things? Who doesn't want to make the military better?
Right. And he kind of laces it throughout, but the final section of this book, he touches on something that we deal with at USA Cares quite a bit, which is the after effects of service. Remind me how many. He had just an incredible amount of deployments. Do you remember that number? I know he said it in there somewhere, the total. It was a lot.
Yeah, it's dozens and dozens. It was ridiculous, but I don't remember the number.
And he shares how, yes, I was a part of an elite unit, and but I still deal with the PTSD and the physical ailments. And he kind of writes directly to his peers and saying, get help. No one's immune. No one who served is immune to the after effects of war, which I think is important too, because he covers so many topics in this, he touches so eloquently on so many different topics, but he kind of rounds out his story with, I'm still going through it, and I know you must be too. So let's use the resources we have.
Yeah, he talked about that a lot, actually. I think he and I did buddy checks, just how are you doing? Are you stressed out? Or how's it going? Is everything good? And I know that he meets with his friends, the people he served with, and they talk about these issues. He worries that VA, it's hard for him to get, or guys like him, guys who are essentially ghosts in the military, there's no official record of them. How do you get your VA benefits if you don't know who you're supposed to go to say, hey, I was shot in this country that I wasn't supposed to be in, that I can't tell you about,
That was another part of the book.
That's
where it was
interesting.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
The difficulties of, I really did.
We hear about the difficulties people have
when they
just as, what's the right term? But the ones who are not
on file?
not covert, yes,
Yeah.
on file. So I can't imagine, how difficult that would be.
Yeah, and actually, I checked with VA about this, and I should say it in case anyone's listening,
Yeah.
but they actually have a person who is supposed to be working with these guys.
Okay.
But
just one.
A lot of these guys don't know that he exists, and that there's someone they're supposed to be automatically sent to. There's supposed to be a flag on their file that puts them to this person who can help them. So
That's interesting.
yeah.
Kelly, as you worked with Adam and interviewed Adam, did you find that this process was stressful for him of talking through this stuff with you, or did you find that it was cathartic for him?
Yeah, I've done a couple of books now. I worked with Kate Germano on her experiences in the Marine Corps. Pete Lapp, his experience as an FBI agent, and now Adam. And my first book wasn't about me, but it was things that I'd witnessed in Iraq that were really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think in all four cases, we found it cathartic. And I think that that's a big part of, the veterans writing programs that are out there. If you can write it down, if you can tell your story, it puts it in an order instead of like that loop, that repetition that you just can't get past a spot. And I think it just helps organize it in your brain.
Yeah.
And I think for Adam, it was the same. I mean, he said as much, just that it's nice to be able to sit down and just tell it. I think we get shut down a lot when we start telling these stories. It's hard to find someone who's just going to listen to your story for hours and hours and hours and hours,
Right.
and not
without
really
judgment, without any kind of inserting of their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
The marketing has to be hard too. I know you touched on it, but he can't wave this book around or tell anyone who's not wasn't in the unit with him. I mean, he talks about his wife doesn't even really know what he did.
Right.
Just that he was in an elite group and he was serving, but she can't even say where he was at, what he was doing. Does she know this about the book? I imagine.
She knows that he wrote a book.
Okay.
I don't know if he's given it to her. I don't know if he's telling her which book he wrote.
Yeah.
I know she's got to know that he's doing a lot of interviews, like podcast interviews and stuff. What's my husband doing in the next room?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just imagine it's hard, when you can't exactly put a face to it, even though there's some pictures with his face obviously blocked out, but he can't exactly go around telling the world about it as himself.
Well, the other thing with the marketing is, it's marketed as a military book, and to me, it doesn't feel like a military book. It has a military aspect back to it, but as you were saying, it's an immigration story. It's a love story about the United States. It's a story about Egypt. It's a story about a 5'1" dude overcoming a health ailment to become everything that he could possibly be in this world. Is a story for, it's funny you brought up the Uber driver. Yeah. His great goal was not to drive a taxi. He just didn't want to drive a taxi.
Yeah.
And he feels like this is a book that can tell immigrants that they don't have to. They can be in the military or do other things, but they can build up and be, as he says, all that they can be. So
be something much more. Absolutely.
What's appealing to, I get probably why I dive so quickly into this book too, is the voice of it is not, you don't get and this is not a bash on any military books that are a lot more, they're throwing acronyms at you and they're very straightforward and it's like a dry read. And as someone who hasn't served and doesn't know a lot of those, it's like, this will put me to sleep. This is a very personal, and I love that there's a lot of explanations that maybe some military people go, does he have to explain that? And I'm like, yeah, he does. For me, he does. He does have to explain that. But that's what I like about it, is it's a very good bridge between the general public and military. Yeah. And he, there's curse words in it and there's very frank.
But it's very real.
It's real. Yeah. I really feel like I'm sitting down with Adam and he's telling me, right from his mouth. I don't feel like I'm getting a prepackaged, cookie cutter story of the military.
Yeah, his friends have said that it sounds like him too, that it sounds like he's talking to them. So that's great. I think that it's interesting too, because you said that you were 7 or 8 when 9/11 happened. So were a lot of people in the military. By the end of the wars, the global war on terror, some of the people who were serving hadn't been born when 9/11 hit.
Yeah.
And he pretty quickly explains like why we were there and how those offshoots of the Muslim Brotherhood developed in the first place in a way that I just haven't seen done before.
Yeah, it's really important, and I think about this a lot and talk to other people about it, but it's really important for people who are younger to realize what this country has been through over the last 25, 30, 35 years, and understanding the history and the sacrifice and all the pieces that went into it. And I think that's part of the reason stories like this are so important. And when to your point, Anise, when they're not told from a military to military standpoint, where people are, because I have the same problem. I'm like Googling acronyms to try to figure out what.
And then I have to not only Google the acronym, then I have to Google the word that the acronym stands for. Because I'm like, what does this mean?
So yeah, I love this story. Now, if you're imagining the reader, if you're imagining somebody who goes on Amazon and buys this book, orders this book, and they get it and they read through it, do you have a goal for what you hope they take from it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the reviews have talked about how woke the book is.
Really?
Yeah. They feel like he's got this diversity message he's trying to put through, and he does, but it's two-sided. It's he wants the military to be better, but he also tells stories of being like a 5'1" Muslim kid from Egypt who. The first guy who helped him get to the United States was a guy from Israel who showed him how to get to his next gate. And in his world, Israeli was people were bad. I mean, they were the enemy. And then he gets to Penn Station in New York, and a cop holds his hand and walks him through the turnstile. He's like in his 20s, but he looks like a kid.
Yeah.
So cops are bad in Egypt in his mind. He gets to the United States, that's the first person who helps him here. He gets to the YMCA in New York City, and the first person who helps him is a junkie when he can't like dial the phone number. He describes him as a junkie, but someone who was using drugs and obviously was having some issues, helps him dial a phone number. And then the first person who hires him and treats him fairly is another Jewish guy.
Yeah.
So he turned all of his own assumptions on their heads. And then he started to see what was happening in the military, and people would come to him and say, here's what I'm experiencing, because he'd become more open-minded because of his experiences. So
yeah. So form your own opinions is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's good. I think there's so much that can be taken away from it. It's always fascinating to follow one person's journey, especially when it's such a minute aspect of the military that many of us have never known existed. So
yeah,
awesome.
I mean, he talks about how everyone thought he was Mexican, and a lot of time he just went with it because people were nicer to him then. So
and I
good.
was I was thinking as I was reading it, for those people who do, as we talk about kind of the philosophical or moral debates you may have about some of the things in this book, it also, I mean, it's not completely free of what I am interested in too, which is he talks about the training to get to the unit and the can't think of words today, but the selection process.
There you go.
And that's really interesting too. Some of the scenarios they put them in that you're like, and you start thinking to yourself, gosh, if I was in that position, I would have been out first round. So I like that that's in there too, that there's just kind of that's interesting part, that we don't get to see out here in the general public.
Yeah.
And some of the stories are just incredible, like the guy who had his glass eyeball knocked out of his head, or the woman in the heels who walked for 27 miles in high heels, or just
that's wild.
Like I would have been out too.
yeah 1 mile in high heels, count me out. Yeah.
Well, Kelly, tell people where they can find this book and how they can purchase it.
Yeah, sure. It's on Barnes & Noble online and Amazon. It's available in a lot of local bookstores, so check there, and local bookstores online as well.
That's awesome.
Can't recommend it enough.
Audible. Yeah. Apparently people like the Audible version, so.
That's probably more my speed too, for somebody who spends a lot of time in the car.
Yeah.
But, well, good job. Anise, any last thoughts or questions?
No, just like I said, I can't, when I get hooked on a book, I'm hooked. And this is one of them that I really like. And not an easy read because it's not interesting stuff, but an easy read, like I said, because you feel like you're sitting there with it.
It's just pulling you right through it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Kelly, what are you working on now? What's the next book?
I'm ghostwriting a couple of things that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Perfect.
She's doing her own special.
We could make it an exclusive right here, Kelly. Go ahead. First time. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to actually get the contract.
Yeah.
And then working on a Civil War book, just doing a bunch of research about a Civil War book in DC. So
good. Well, we look forward to more books from you, and thank you so much for spending a little time with us and encouraging Anise to read a book. So, way to go.
Got my one a year, baby. Check.
Well, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It was great talking with you.
You too. Thank you so much. Anise, this was great. I think, anytime we can shed light on, again, people putting themselves in harm's way to serve. I think you did a great job with this. And
if you don't like Adam after reading this, I don't like you. Let's just say that. He seems very likable.
I think in any story you hear of somebody's life, you're going to hear aspects of it you like and aspects of it you don't like. And to me, that is the epitome of a true story, right? Of a real story. There's going to be parts of people's lives that you aren't going to agree with. And so it's always interesting to hear comments and people's feedback on books, because if you agree with it 100%, it probably was over edited.
Right.
But I think it's great. So nice job with that. So again, if you are new to the USA Cares podcast, I hope you'll stick with us. I hope you'll come back again next week. We've got some other great guests coming up, some really great episodes, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Hit that subscribe button, make it part of your weekly routine. But the other thing I want to mention is the organization that makes this podcast possible is called USA Cares, and we spend a lot of time helping veteran families across the country. We help them avoid eviction, foreclosure. We help them transition from their military to their civilian careers. And we help people avoid veteran suicide by eliminating the factors that often push people to make such a terrible decision. So I want you to learn more about us. Check out usacares.org. Read up on us. If you want to make a donation, please feel free. But there's a lot of great organizations like USA Cares out there doing a lot of work to help veterans. And if it's not with us, get involved somewhere. But this is really important. There's a lot of people hurting right now. There's a lot of people who need a lot of help. And we need you to get on board. So definitely check it out, usacares.org. Anise, anything I've missed?
Nope. I think you got the good
All
stuff.
right. So great being with you. Look forward to being with you again next week.